Welcome to the Economic Empowerment Podcast, where we break down the pathways to financial growth, investment opportunities, and building generational wealth. I'm your host, Ramel Lee, and I'm thrilled to take you on this journey beyond business into a world of possibilities that many don't have the access to see. Each episode, we deep dive into topics like alternative investments, real estate, hotel ownership, and much more, bringing you expert insights, inspirational stories, and actionable advice to help you take control of your financial future. Whether you're an experienced investor or just starting to explore new opportunities, this podcast is here to empower you with knowledge and tools to make informed decisions. But before we get started, I want to remind you, this podcast is for informational purposes only. The content discussed here is not financial advice. Every investment decision carries risk, and it's crucial to do your own research and consult with your personal financial advisor before taking action. Now, let's dive in and explore the exciting world of economic empowerment. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Economic Empowerment Podcast. I'm your host, Ramel Lee. Today's episode is going to be a little different from what we've done in the past. Today, I will be discussing my personal journey from where I started into how I got into hotels. A lot of people have been asking, how did you get started? What did you do to get started in the hotel space? So today I'm pulling back the curtain and I'm going to let you know how I got my journey, how I started, the lessons that I learned, and how you could take steps towards home to health ownership. If you had told me years ago that I would own hotels and launch an investment fund to help others do the same, I might not have believed you. But I'm here today to share exactly what I've learned and how I got here. So, I've been running several businesses for a long time. As you may or may not know, I spent 22 years as a New York State employee, had a great job, promoted several times, rose up through the ranks progressively. And I always knew that my pension wouldn't be enough for me once I retired. I had a job where I could retire early. I retired at 45 years old. But I always knew that once I got to the point where I was ready to retire, that my pension wouldn't be enough to sustain my lifestyle with inflation. And let's face it, I like nice things, right? So early on in my career, I became an entrepreneur. Believe it or not, in my younger years, I used to throw parties. I used to throw big parties in Brooklyn, New York, in the city, even in Miami, boat rides, pool parties, had lots of fun, made lots of money. But even in that business, I still had more of a consumer mindset as opposed to a business owner, investor mindset. And then, I went back to school, got my master's degree in security management, and started my own security company. And we own that, and we've had that for almost 10 years. And then the pandemic hit, and my security company took a big hit. I mean, all the office buildings were closed, so there was no need to have people there to secure them. So we pivoted and we started a logistics company. We actually partnered with Amazon for the last mile delivery service to deliver your packages. So, all those blue Amazon vans you see riding around through the city, those routes are owned by individual business owners. And we had some routes. We had about 34 vehicles on a regular. During the holiday peak season, at times we got up to 50 vehicles. That was a great business, but we exited that business mid-June 2024. It was just the right time to get out due to increase in maintenance costs, insurance, things like that. So it was a good time to get out of that business. In between all that time, started another business, a short-term rental business, Track Properties, with one of my older brother and sister-in-law. And we have some property down on Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, that's doing very well. Started an event space and party rental company I actually partnered with a friend and colleague of mine, and that went well, and actually exited out of that business late last year. Um, what I wanted to do is uh, get into real estate, commercial real estate to be specific. And what actually happened was I was speaking with a colleague of mine talking about getting into real estate investing. And we were just talking about investing in general and how Robert Kiyosaki, the author Rich Dad Poor Dad, had a game called Cash Flow. And Cash Flow is a game designed to teach people about investing. And then we got developed into a conversation about Monopoly. And he said, what if Monopoly was originally a game to teach you about real estate? I mean, it's a family fun game now. It's also a family ending game if you play like me and my family. However, Monopoly is, all the principles of real estate ring true in Monopoly. You could get Baltic for real cheap. You won't collect much rent on it. Uh, if you get Boardwalk or Park Place, you hit the jackpot, and someone could go bankrupt landing on your property. Even down to community chest, right? You can pull a card and owe taxes that you didn't anticipate, or have to do repairs on your properties that you didn't anticipate. So the rules of Monopoly ring true in real estate. And ultimately, the goal of Monopoly is to put a hotel on your property. And that's when I had my aha moment. I said, if I'm going to get into commercial real estate, let me look into hotels. So I started, looking into hotels, hotel ownership, and then I came across my mentor who's now my mentor, Davonne Reaves. I seen her on a podcast discussing hotel ownership, specifically Black hotel ownership. She brought up a fact that out of the approximately 66,000 hotels in the United States, less than 2% are Black owned. So that had me thinking, one, uh, that's an opportunity as far as to increase my personal generational wealth. And two, if people are looking to invest in something like that, they probably don't have that in their portfolio, right? Since such a small number of us are in hotel ownership. And, I saw her on a podcast, and then I seen she was selling a course about learning how to buy hotels. Now, I see these courses all the time for all different type of things. I see these, it seems like everyone has a course, but it was something in my spirit that said, you know what, she's the real deal. Let me buy her course and see what it's about. And so it was supposed to be an 8-week course, and uh, 10 days in, I think I was like on week 6, and I contacted her to ask her questions. And so she was like, you just brought the course. Like, how, did you skip this part? No. She said, you did this part. I said, yes, you did that part. Yeah. And, I just, she took me under her wing, and I've been learning ever since. And so, from there, she got me into my first 2 hotel deals. And those are the hotels that are in Indiana, the Hampton Inn Suites and the Staybridge Inn Suites. And, those are actually performing very well. I had my first opportunity, though, which I am kicking myself, was to get into the Lake Charles deal with Amina and her husband. And I know that they're doing very well, but I digress. So I got into the Indiana hotel deal, and I just dove in, right? I began going to conferences, uh, looking into, just meeting people in the industry. And I got to tell you, I went to my first hotel conference. I went to the NABHOOD conference, and that's a funny story because I ended up at that conference pure accident. I was actually down in Miami celebrating a friend of mine's birthday, and Davon was having like a hotel investor meetup. And so it was the day I was supposed to leave. I said, you know what, I'll stay another day, and I'll go check out the meetup. And so I went to the hotel where the meetup was, and their Wyndham was having a thing called Bold, um, and that's educating underserved communities about teaching about hotel ownership. And so I'm there, and let me tell you, I was very confused. I thought this was her meetup because she was there and she was teaching some stuff. And so I said, let me, hang out. And then I come out and I meet this guy, and he says, "Hey, where you from?" And all right, here's the thing. I live in New Jersey. Whenever someone asks me where I'm from, I tell them Brooklyn because that's where I'm from, born and raised, even though I haven't lived in Brooklyn in like 20 years, right? But I digress. Once you're from Brooklyn, if you're born and raised in Brooklyn, you're always from Brooklyn. Anyway, I tell him I'm from Brooklyn. And so he said, "You're here for the conference?" And I'm like, "What conference?" And so he's like, the NABHOOD, Black Hotel Owners Conference. And he was telling me about all the different things that he was going to be there. And he told me one of my, personal heroes was going to be there, Don Peebles, right? I never met the guy until that conference, but he told me about a couple of other people that I've seen on podcasts and read up on as I began studying the hotel space. People like Craig Livingston, who built the Renaissance Hotel in Harlem. And I'm like, wow, all these people are going to be here. I never heard of this organization, period, let alone the conference. And he says, "Well, I'm the president of the organization." His name is Andy Ingram. If you're into the hotel business, you probably know Andy Ingram. And so I immediately I walked away from him and I changed my flight. I booked more nights in the hotel to stay, and I stayed for the conference. And I got to tell you, it was one of the best decisions I ever made. I met people from all the different brands, from IHG, Wyndham, Choice. Shout out to the Choice people. They were great. I met other real estate investors, people that own hotels, people that sell hotels, hotel brokers, real estate attorneys. Shout out to Keishain Patel, right? He's an awesome guy. Um, all the Patels are awesome. Jay Nash, those are great guys. And so I just was networking and meeting and learning lessons about investing in hotels, hotel operations. Like it was so much knowledge I got. And I kept saying to, I was telling someone, I said, I can't believe how gracious everyone has been here with their knowledge and their wisdom. And they said, I can't believe how nice they are. I can't believe. And they said, how hospitable they are. And I said, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? These people are hospitable. They're in hospitality. They love this. This is what they do. And I got to tell you, I fell in love with the industry right then and there. Have you ever stayed in a hotel and thought, what if I owned this? What if you could move from being a guest to being an owner? Hi, I'm Ramel Lee, managing partner of RDL Hotel Fund I. We've created a unique opportunity for people like you to invest in hotel ownership, an asset class once reserved for the wealthy elite. Hotels, especially economy extended stay properties, are resilient and generate cash flow even during economic downturns. With as little as $10,000, you can join our movement to democratize wealth and create opportunities for your future. This is your chance to build generational wealth. Don't just stay in hotels, own them. Visit us at www.rdlecp.com to learn more and take your first step today. Um, and so I already had made my investments in the Indiana properties, but now it just made me want to learn more, get more involved. And now in learning, I learned about how hard it was for the average person to invest in the hotel space. And so, on the course of me working and building my businesses, I became what's called an accredited investor. Now, an accredited investor is someone who makes at least 200,000 a year or has a net worth of at least $1 million, not counting their primary residence, right? And once I became an accredited investor, I was presented with all of these different opportunities. I was presented with opportunities to buy into multifamily syndications, uh, invest in Broadway shows, invest in whiskey barrels, invest in tech startups, put money into VCs, right? I received all these opportunities. So, during the course of that, I learned how to underwrite opportunities very well. Um, everyone has a great opportunity that they present to you. But, I thought to myself, I could have really used a lot of these opportunities when I was younger and had disposable income, before I had kids and all that stuff, right? So I said, uh, you know, if I ever had the opportunity to help people who weren't accredited investors invest in some of these alternative assets, then I would. And so that's how I came up with launching the RDL Hotel Fund. Now, I had all of these different businesses, as I outlined earlier, all of these different investments that I just spoke about. And I basically created an alternative investment firm to hold all of these assets and to pool the capital gained from these assets into a company that I can now go out and invest into more assets. And so rather than just going out and purchasing the whole more hotels on my own, investing in more hotels on my own, I decided that I was going to launch a fund to allow other people to invest in hotels. And I was going to launch a fund that would allow non-accredited as well as accredited investors to invest in this asset class. And so, my mentor, Davonne, she launched a crowdfunding platform, Vestor, right? Vesterr, Vestor. And I might be mistaken, but I believe she's the only Black woman that owns a crowdfunding platform, right? And for those who don't know what crowdfunding is, it's a way to get a large group of investors to put smaller amounts of money in for a particular investment, and usually an equity investment. Think of GoFundMe. GoFundMe is the most popular crowdfunding platform, but that's donation based. Vestor is more of uh, not more of, it's investment based. So rather than like GoFundMe, you just donate money. Everybody get together, puts in money, and gives it to someone, and they spend it on whatever they need it for. Vestor is more like everyone gets together, puts in money, and we go and buy a hotel, right? Um, I seen how other people did their crowdfunding, where they would find an asset and then raise capital for that asset. I decided to do it in reverse. I wanted to be fully capitalized before I got into an asset because I wanted to take advantage of all the different opportunities and ways to acquire an asset. I wanted to, as Don people say, you make the money when you buy, right? So I wanted to have the ability to take advantage of making the money when I buy the hotel. And so, having the capital up front allows us to, take advantage possibly of auctions, of notes, of taking over someone's mortgages, seller finance. The sellers usually want more equity invested. So having the capital up front allows me to pursue hotels and achieve better terms. Um, and so, the real mission was behind RDL Hotel Fund One was to get people, working class people, an opportunity to invest in hotels and make some money off of them. Um, and so far so good. Like I'm loving what we're doing here with RDL Hotel Fund One. Um, it's been an interesting ride dealing with the attorneys and things of that nature, dealing with the different potential investors. Um, and it's iron sharpening iron. The more questions people ask, the better I get at understanding the investor needs and concerns and be able to address them up front and designing a fund that is a benefit to the investors. Using the regulation CF exemption to raise capital, most people who raise capital don't use it, right? Because it's really not capital raiser friendly. Like, first of all, is a cap, right? The most you can raise in a year is $5 million. These other exemptions, you can raise as much money as you want. Having to host your fund on a FINRA approved platform is another one, right? That's something that the other exemptions you don't have to do. And there's a lot more compliance to protect the investors. So a lot of capital raisers don't, it's not worth it to them. They don't even want to bother with it. But for me, it was very important to give people the opportunity to invest that wouldn't have a chance to invest otherwise, and to get in for a lower investment point than a lot of other people. Usually you find one of these funds, it's 50,000, 100,000 to get in. I set it at 10,000. Because I didn't want to set it any lower, because then I would have to deal with like 8,000 investors. But I set it at a price point where I could deal with a comfortable amount of investors, and it's not too heavy of a lift to invest in, especially for first time investors. But I have some people that are experienced investors, understand the value proposition that we have, and they're investing way more than $10,000, right? Which I'm appreciative of. And, RD Capital Partners is investing a large portion of their net worth into the fund as well. And so, between, me coming to my aha moment with Monopoly, and meeting my mentor Davonne and Reaves, and meeting Andy Ingram, the president of NABHood, and all of these other great people in the hotel industry. I've met some very impressive people that are doing great things in the business, and we're working very hard to get beyond that 2% of Black hotel ownership. And, for me personally, and the reason why I named the podcast Economic Empowerment, is because, there's a lot of ways to uh, sustain the community, strengthen the community. For me, economics is top tier way to strengthen and galvanize the community. But this only really works if we practice in cooperative economics, right? We have to be able to work together, pool our money together, and purchase assets that have a higher bar of entry, right? Uh, Anyone by themselves, can take their tax return and open a barbershop or a hair salon. A couple of guys can get together and open a bar. And so that means there's going to be a lot of competition. You're going to have to work that much harder on your marketing and your sales. Your margins are going to be that much lower. But getting into something big like a hotel is amazing, right? So that means higher margins, higher, because there's a higher bar for entry. Not that many people can do it, but together you can clear that bar of entry and reap the benefits of, of the profits of having a hotel. So, it's attainable. If I can do it, right? I'm not smarter than anyone else. I'm not richer than anyone else, but I was able to do it. So, and I'm out here educating people on how to do it. I'm doing hotel investment educational seminars, and I created a vehicle, the RDL Hotel Fund I, for people to get involved as they learn. You know, the first investment on your journey to investing is going to be the hardest, right? That's the one you're going to be the most nervous about, the one you're worried about taking the risk on. And someone asked me one time, what do I think about risk? How do I manage risk? And I say, I don't think people take enough risk. I say people, they something goes bad and they don't ever take another risk, not realizing that next risk was probably going to be the thing to push them over the top. So you got to take risk in order to reap those rewards. And working together minimize those risks, right? Yeah, you can probably put $1 million of your money into a hotel, but you're taking $1 million risk. Why not get with 9 other people, each putting 100 grand, right? That allows you to take 10 risks as opposed to one. So if hotel investing has ever crossed your mind, let this be a sign, a start to learning, networking, and positioning yourself for opportunities. If you want to learn more about investing in hotels with me, visit my website, rdleecp.com. That's rdleecp.com, or follow me on social medias. Make sure you click the subscribe button down there. Watch these episodes. My other podcast episodes I'm on with industry experts that are breaking down the intricacies of running a hotel and investing in hotels. And I'm just trying to, pay it forward. Someone taught me, so I'm going to teach others. I hope you learned something. I hope you were inspired a little. And like I said, subscribe to the podcast so that you can get alerts when a new episode drops. And I'll see you all later. Thanks for watching. Thank you for tuning into another episode of the Economic Empowerment Podcast, where we break down the barriers to wealth and create pathways to financial freedom. I hope today's conversation gave you valuable insights and inspired you to take action on your journey toward economic empowerment. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It helps us reach more people who are ready to transform their financial future. For more resources, updates, and investment opportunities, visit RDLHotelFundI.com or follow us on Economic Empowerment Pod on all social platforms. Until next time, remember, wealth isn't just built, it's learned, earned, and shared. Stay empowered.